Hi everyone, I'm Judith Hope, and today we're going to be talking about emo music. We are actually going to be looking at this genre of music and a few artists from a spiritual perspective, and also getting into some of the conspiracy theories around the music industry and Hollywood. And for me personally, I love emo music, pop punk music, whatever you want to call it. I personally take pride in calling myself an elder emo, and I definitely was a part of that scene in my late high school and early college years. So this stuff holds very near and dear to my heart. And I do believe that there are a lot of starseeds out there in the music industry producing and performing music as part of their mission to help humanity. And most of the bands we're going to be talking about today are bands that I am personally a fan of and have watched them grow and change over the years. And I have been to many of their live shows as well. So I am super excited to talk about all of this today. And before we get started, I just want to make sure and remind everyone to hit that like and subscribe button below. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so before we even get into the emo stuff, I want to talk a little bit about sound frequency. So, every sound that we hear carries a vibration, and when we hear that vibration, it can affect our vibration. It can either lower or raise our vibration. This can be true for actual music, specifically the beats we hear in music, and it can also be true of voices. So, just hearing someone's voice can lower or raise our vibration. I've actually had visions before showing that certain politicians, when they're speaking in public forums and on film, are using their voice to lower our vibration. I actually really got to see this concept up close and personal when I was at a pool party in Las Vegas last year. So, this was a pool party that was hosted at one of the really big hotels owned by one of the large corporations that operates hotels out of Vegas. And prior to going to the party, me and my friend decided to take some chocolate infused with mushrooms, specifically mucimol, which is derived from the Amanita muscaria mushroom. Now, as this type of mushroom is not federally regulated in the United States, and this was in 2024, which was prior to the FDA prohibiting mucimol's use in food and dietary supplements, I was actually able to buy the substance directly over the counter in Vegas. So I took about half of a square of this chocolate about an hour or so before we got to the pool party. So by the time we got there, the effects of the mushroom chocolate were already kicking in, and by the time we got to the pool, they were in full effect. And so, where I ended up sitting at this pool party, I was super close to the stage and I could see the advertisements for all of the different DJs that played at this pool party on the side of one of the hotels. And it was a very different experience for me listening to the music that they were playing while I was under the influence of these mushrooms. The music was definitely electronic techno music, some of it a little poppy, different styles, some stuff from today, the 2010s, the 2000s. But what was crazy is that I could physically feel the feelings of power, control, and patriarchy coming from the music, coming from the beats of the music specifically. And I could almost see it coming from the speakers and coming down into the crowd, into the people. And mind you, like, these DJs that were playing there, like, these were big name DJs. Some of them current, a lot of them from, like the 2010s. But this is music that is played, nationwide on every radio station, on Spotify, and a lot of this music is popular enough that it, is played in other countries. And what I noticed was that the DJs would start with just beats and then layer music on top of that. And I could see how the music was covering these frequencies and feelings that were being transmitted out to the crowd. So basically, what I saw happening was that certain frequencies and sounds were being transmitted to us that would keep us in a lower vibration that were used in these very, very popular and very mainstream songs that most people, definitely in the US, but even outside of the US, would hear these songs on a regular basis, right? Like even walking to a store and hearing this song, maybe seeing it on a TV show, right? Even if it's not the type of, music that you listen to regularly. And this is hard to describe, but I'm going to do my best here. So I looked up at the advertisements on the side of the hotel. I could literally see that there were packages of dark energy that were built and then used with a DJ as a cover for the package so that you don't really realize what you're experiencing. Like you're just seeing a DJ and listening to their music and not realizing what's really happening. It was also evident that this energy was not from Earth. It felt dark, evil, controlling, whatever you want to call it, and it made me realize that there are dark forces on this planet controlling us. And the way I saw Earth during that mushroom trip was very different than how I see Earth in a sober state. It took me out of my 3D rose colored glasses and showed me what was happening from a very different perspective. Okay, so that story is pretty dark, but I do feel like it's the best kind of description or story that I have to show how sound and frequency can be used on this planet to manipulate us, to manipulate our energy, our vibration, which in turn affects our thoughts and actions and keeps us living on autopilot. So basically, we're living in fear, we're living in anger, we're living in sadness, right? Instead of being able to kind of move through these emotions and live in things like joy and love, right? And it's crazy that literally the music that we're listening to is keeping us in those vibrations. We're also easier to control when we're living in those vibrations and living on autopilot. So I think that's a big part of it as well. And I think we see this in every genre of music out there. I think some of the biggest pop stars we currently know are also doing this. Through their music and their voice, they are also sending out these negative frequencies and vibrations that keep us trapped in a lower frequency. In fact, there are some really big name musicians that I literally don't listen to any of their music. And it's not that I'm consciously deciding not to listen to their music, it's just that I don't pay attention to it. I don't listen to it, and it just doesn't come into my field. So, that's a little background on the more negative aspect of popular mainstream music and how we are, unfortunately, being controlled by galactic forces through the music that we listen to pretty much every day. But despite all of this, I also believe that there are some artists who are actually starseeds that are sending out high frequency codes in order to help us all raise our vibrations. This definitely exists in every genre of the music industry, but today we'll be focusing mainly on emo and punk music, mainly because I'm a huge fan of this music and I want to talk about it. And I also want to talk about some of the things I have noticed about a few of my favorite bands over the years, especially as I've watched them in concert. Okay, so let's start with my current favorite band, All Time Low. So I typically go and see this band perform live at least once or twice a year. And last year in 2024, I went to their 20th anniversary show at Red Rocks as part of their All Time Low Forever tour. And wow, this show was incredible. Probably one of the longest shows they've ever played, and definitely got to see almost all of their major hits. And that's saying a lot because they currently have 11 albums, including their Forever sessions they released just last year. Okay, so I was so into the show at Red Rocks and was definitely not paying attention to what was happening in the sky above me. But in the days following the show, the band's lead singer, Alex Gaskarth, kept mentioning on his Instagram story that there had been reports of UFO sightings at the end of the concert. So I asked my friend that had been at the show with me, and she said she had actually seen some lights in the sky at the end of the show. So, after hearing all of this, I decided to go into the Akashic Records and ask what was happening in the night sky at the end of the All Time Low 2024 Red Rock show. And I got some answers, and I actually made some Instagram reels about what I found back in the day, back in 2024. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play those reels now for y'all to watch. So, here you go. Hi. So, you might have heard, but supposedly there were UFO sightings at the 2024 All Time Low concert at Red Rocks Amphitheater. So I was actually at this concert. I personally didn't see anything, but also All Time Low is my all-time favorite band. So I was super, super into the show, into the music, not paying attention. And then after the concert, I saw that the band posted that there were UFO sightings. And I asked my friend that I was with, and she said that towards the end of the show, she actually did see some stuff in the sky above the amphitheater. So I decided to investigate using the Akashic Records. So I went into the records and I opened up two sets of records. The first were the records for the Red Rocks Amphitheater. The second was the records of the concerts itself. So what I got is there were actually two UFO ships there that night, and that they were there for the aliens to come out of the ships down into the crowd and do different types of energy healings on the individuals within the crowd. So they were doing a lot of different types of energy healings. They were going in and they were removing different energetic blocks. They were repairing damages. They were actually putting different types of energies into the individuals. They were also sending the individuals messages through their third eye that would be stored in the subconscious in the body for the individual that they would need later. All right, that's all I have time for in part one, but please check out part two to see why no one could see these aliens in the crowd and then why the ships were spotted at the end of the concert. Hello, so this is part two of the series. Please check out part one before you watch this clip. So the beings that were performing these different healings were actually incarnated beings. They came out of the ships on like flying motorcycles and were down kind of hovering above the crowd. They were shielded from us, so we couldn't see them. So basically, it was like an iridescent shield, and they were blending into the background. I don't believe they were as dense physical bodies as actual humans, but they were incarnated souls in a ET alien type of body. So these types of healings are happening during a concert because it's actually easier for the aliens to come in when someone is really focused on the music and kind of having an out-of-body experience and not super conscious, right? Because they're so into the song, into the concert, into the show. And why did no one see these UFOs until the end of the show? It's because as the show was ending, the UFOs actually came down closer, and then all of the aliens that were amongst the crowd working like went back up to be picked up. So they actually descended as the show was ending. So that's why they were sighted at that time. And according to the Akashic Records, this was far from the only concert that this happens at. This apparently happens quite a bit at the Red Rocks Amphitheater. So there you have it. That's what happened. Okay, so interesting, right? It seems like the All Time Low concert is not the only show that we see UFO activity at the Red Rocks Amphitheater. So, later that year in 2024, around the November timeframe, I actually got a download about All Time Low. I was watching Instagram and I noticed that the lead guitarist, Jack Barakat, had a tattoo on the left side of his neck in the shape of a triangle, and the same spot on his neck as the lead singer, Alex Gaskarf, has a tattoo of a skull and crossbones, and this tattoo for Alex is on the right side of his neck. I felt intuitively that there was something to this, so I decided to once again go into the Akashic Records and ask about why they have these tattoos on their necks. What I receive from the Akashic Records is that while they are on stage, the lead singer, Alex, is funneling energy through his voice into the crowd, and he's using Jack's energy to do this. Basically, Alex has a crossbone tattoo on his neck to show that he is the one who is sending the energy down, while Jack's tattoo of a triangle represents the portal the energy is channeled through. I also got the hit that Alex was the one who initially wanted to come to Earth and do this work, and he actually asked Jack's soul to come and help him. And that is one of the reasons why Alex became the lead singer, while Jack is the lead guitarist. So, I recently saw All Time Low perform at 2025 Riot Fest, and somehow, after waiting in the rain for about an hour and a half, I ended up right at the front of the stage. Talk about bucket list item. Here's some footage so you can see exactly how close to the stage I was. So, as they were performing, I would sometimes just feel the energy of the music, and I could feel the energy of the music just coming down from above me. It's like I could reach up and touch it. This felt so good to do this that sometimes I even forgot to pay attention to the fact that the band was literally performing on the stage about 5 feet in front of me, and this is my favorite band. So, after this experience, I actually went back into the Akashic Records to ask more about what exactly happened during the concert. What I saw in the records is that the energy the band is channeling comes from above and goes into each person in the crowd through a chakra point or other energy center that is above their head. The way the Akashic Records showed it to me is that basically everyone has these diamond-shaped chakra centers above their head, very similar to how characters in the Sims game have these diamonds above their head that signal if they are playable right now and what type of mood they're in. So, the energy that is being sent down through the band and their music is being channeled into each person through this diamond shaped chakra point that is right above the head. The energy then travels into each person's body through their crown chakra, which sits at the top of the head, where you would typically place a crown. But the way they showed it to me is that these diamond-shaped chakras above the head will basically fill with this energy to the point that they will explode and then go into the body and power it up. Similar to how we see when, in a video game, the character Mario will hit a mushroom and be supercharged, or double and triple his size. So this energy being channeled during the All Time Low show is of the frequency of pure joy and affects our heart chakras and allows us to connect more to our inner and outer self, as well as feel our heart chakra more. So basically, what they're doing here is love and heart expansion. So beautiful. This increases our ability to understand and experience the feeling of being loved, to spread love, and to see the beauty and love through other people's eyes, not just our own. The Akashic Records also confirm that this is not a conscious thing that anyone in the band or associated with the band is doing consciously, meaning that while this is happening on the energetic and unconscious level and is more considered to be the work of the soul, no one in the band is actually consciously aware of what is happening. So if I went and I asked them about any of this, they would most likely have no idea what I was talking about. So, I am also going to make my most educated guess as to what Jack and Alex's soul origin point is. Now, I have not gone into either of their Akashic records or the records of All Time Low. I would not do that unless they actually came to me wanting a reading. So, this is simply an educated guess based on what I know about the different soul origin types and what I know about Jack and Alex. Now, I definitely intuitively feel that these two souls are linked and that they came here from the same place. Just the way I see them interacting on stage, it feels like they have a closeness and familiarity that goes beyond this lifetime. My best guess for their soul origin is actually Sirius for a few different reasons. First, let's start with the work that we just talked about them doing expansion of the heart chakra and the ability to love. So, most ETs from Sirius have much higher telepathic abilities than us and often communicate directly through their heart chakras using thoughts and feelings instead of talking verbally using words. This makes communication much more loving than words or thoughts alone. So, the heart chakra work that I talked about earlier would make a lot of sense in context to Jack and Alex being from Sirius. And I actually believe that when they were on Sirius, they took the extraterrestrial form of a bird humanoid. Mainly, this is because of the way that they styled their hair back in their emo days. Still, maybe a little bit today, but primarily back like in the emo heyday. Now, typically, in my mind's eye, when I see bird beings depicted like this, with feathers literally sticking up on the side of their head, kind of like some cosmic mohawk, it really reminds me of how Jack and Alex have styled their hair over the years. And I would definitely say, like, this is mainly Jack, like, maybe more so a little more Jack than Alex with this particular style of kind of sticking up in the middle of the head. You can see here, I actually put him directly by the bird being, and like, you can kind of see what I mean, right? Like, he kind of has that, like, same point that these birds with these feathers on the top of their heads would have. Now we'll go to Alex here, and he has a lot of that same energy. I do think that he definitely has like a lot of Syrian energy, like he's been on Sirius for some of his past lives, or may feel some kind of familiarity to Sirius because of his time there. But I also think he has a lot of Lyran energy too, just because of his hair here. So like look at that hair and like it looks like a lion's mane, right? And a lot of times with Lyran starseeds, we'll see individuals that have hair like that kind of cut that way. And it, and his hair isn't like, just like huge and, full of voluminous. I can't say that word. And we'll see that with a lot of, Lyran starseeds. But with him, just because he does have this hairstyle, it gives that he could have some kind of like Lyran type of past lives or incarnations, a connection to that star system, was probably a lion humanoid at some point during that star system as well. Okay, so the hair isn't the only reason I think they're from Sirius. A lot of Sirius starseeds are super into science fiction and fantasy stories, books, and movies. And as I am such a big fan of All Time Low, and I've listened to so many of their interviews, I know that they have mentioned this in several of their interviews and other short clips I may have seen on like Instagram, other social media accounts. At least Alex has, that they like Star Wars and, those types of series. And I actually heard at one point Alex say that he rented out an entire movie theater just for him and his friends and family to watch a Star Wars movie. So there you go. Seems like a very serious starseed type of thing to do. Also, many Sirius starseeds enjoy getting tattoos and piercings and expressing themselves artistically through clothing and accessories, and I definitely have to say that this is super true of both Jack and Alex, as over the years they have experimented with lots of different styles, including their hair, clothing, and tattoos. Now, you could say that this is true of the entire emo and punk music scene, so it has me thinking, do most of the musicians involved with the emo and punk genres have a connection to Sirius? Now, if I had to guess, I would definitely imagine that both Jack and Alex are sleeper starseeds, meaning that they are souls here on a mission to help the planet, but they don't really remember that or identify with being from another planet or anything like that. They're more focused on being human and their work. Now, I don't know for sure because I don't know how they behave in their private lives, but I would say based on how they present publicly, they are most likely sleeper starseeds. Now, on to our next band we're going to be talking about today, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, I did love a few of this band's hit songs growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, but I do have to say right off the bat that I am not as familiar with this band or as big of a fan as I am of some of the other bands that we're going to be talking about today in this video. The biggest reason I chose to include the Red Hot Chili Peppers in this video is their song, Californication, which was released in the year 2000. So, I remember listening to this song as a kid, but I didn't really think too much about its meaning, mainly just about how the song was talking about California and the superficial culture that comes from Hollywood. However, listening to it as an adult and one who has spiritually awakened and started to understand what is actually happening on the planet, it's pretty clear that it's a call out to what is happening behind the scenes in Hollywood with the elites. In fact, if you watch the beginning of the music video, which I do have to say, it's a pretty cool music video for back in the day, and even by today's standards, I feel like it's still a really fun concept. You'll actually catch the horse from TriStar Pictures at the beginning of the music video, kind of like flying in towards us. So, yeah, let's go ahead and watch it. So, I'm going to play it now. Okay, so here we are in the music video. There's the state of California, and what do we see on the horizon? Is that the horse from TriStar Pictures, or should I say Pegasus? I'm pretty sure it's a Pegasus, because horses do not have wings, at least any of the horses that I've ever seen. So yeah, so there it is, right at the very beginning of the music video. Definitely an ode to Hollywood right there. And we're going to get into some of the lyrics in this song and potential meanings behind those lyrics related to conspiracy theories and things like that. But before that, I want to share a little bit about my own personal experience touring one of the biggest studios in Hollywood, which is Paramount Pictures. So let's get into that first. So I didn't even realize how much of like the TV and movie content that Paramount Picture actually owns and has created until I went and did the studio tour. So I've been living in LA the past few months and I like to go and do all the touristy and fun things. So I've done all the movie studio tours, but Paramount really kind of stuck out to me for a lot of ways. And like the first thing was that like they do own so much of the content. Like when I went there, I just felt like I was like, oh my gosh, like I know way more of these movies and these TV shows than I did at some of the other studios. And it really took me like going on site to like realize like how much they do have in their catalog. Now, I must say that the studio lot was super quaint. It was historical and super busy with people walking around, whether that be people working or tourists like me. My human obviously loved and enjoyed the tour. Here I am holding a real life Oscar statue. And at the time that I took the tour, I was actively looking for some type of employment in Los Angeles, and I was definitely considering applying at all of the major movie studios. During the tour, however, I got a very strong message from my spirit team. Don't apply here. This wasn't the place for me. Based on this, I definitely felt that while it looked quaint and happy and beautiful on the outside, that might not be the way the company operated from behind closed doors. Now, there are all kinds of conspiracy theories out there about Hollywood, but the big one that I want to talk about today is how they use movies and storytelling to control us. And before I get started, I do have to note that this is for entertainment purposes only. So, the movies that are made in Hollywood are highly influenced by those at the top, those who are behind the scenes and who we don't necessarily know about. They are the Hollywood elite, and they will push certain narratives or pre programming through the movies, TV, and music that are created and shown to the masses. They control what the population thinks about intimacy, about spirituality, about life, and what is normal versus not normal. They also use these movies as propaganda campaigns to make us think that all aliens are evil and are going to invade the planet for our resources. And they literally get us to co create the worst case scenarios by making us fear these things happening in real life by literally showing these worst case scenarios to us on the big screen in the movies. A quick side note, only some aliens are evil, not all of them. Just like humans, there are good aliens, bad aliens, and anything and everything in between. And also, is any human really all bad or all good? So, this is a big part of how Hollywood controls the masses through the content it creates. One of the really good things about technology and even social media is that now an average person can also create content and blast it out on the internet. So, it is becoming less and less easy for Hollywood to control the masses. Now, what I'm about to say here is for entertainment purposes only, but a lot of times, in order to become famous in Hollywood, you have to sell your soul to the devil, right? We've all heard of this. Make an agreement in order to become super famous. And in real life, it's not actually the devil you're dealing with, but instead it's the Hollywood elites. And you have to make a deal with these elites, and you end up doing some pretty gnarly things with them in order to just become famous. So, back to the Red Hot Chili Peppers and their song Californication. This song is basically laying all of this out. If you read between the lines, that is. The song insinuates that there is a darker side to Hollywood and that they package content to shape the perception they want us to have. For example, more so than having our own experiences when we are trying to figure out something in our lives or wondering about what it would be like to have a new experience, we often automatically go to, hey, this is what I've seen in the movies before, as opposed to scientific evidence or research, or even asking others for advice based off of their own personal experiences. And when I was doing the research for this video, I wanted to see what the band had to say about this song, and I definitely did not find anything that would suggest that any of the band members are actually conspiracy theorists or outright trying to call out the Hollywood elites, or I don't even know if they would even know about them, right? But more so, they're just really speaking to the fake nature of Hollywood from a very human experience, and my guess is that, like All Time Low, the Red Hot Chili Peppers are also sleeper starseeds. So with that, let's get into some of the lyrics from this song. Okay, so this song may allude to the fact that the 1969 landing on the moon may have been fabricated in a studio in Hollywood with the lyrics, "Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement." Ooh, just like listening to it, it's just like, oh, I don't know, it gets me. And I am definitely not the first person to suggest this. This has been suggested many a times by those labeled as conspiracy theorists before me. In general, the line is taken as to represent how Hollywood shapes our reality and perception through illusion, how most of us experience space through movies and TV rather than telescopes and science. So, again, this goes back to how Hollywood is one of the biggest factors that shapes our human perception of the world. However, if you want to take a look at it from a conspiracy theorist perspective, and the deeper I get into this stuff, the more and more that I begin to believe a lot of conspiracy theories. This lyric is really alluding to the fact that Hollywood is shaping our experience of outer space, life on other planets, and may even have the ability to manufacture and or manipulate different critical historical and societal events, such as the 1969 landing on the moon. And we all saw the earlier video this year of Blue Origin's NS-31 mission on April 14th, 2025, where Katy Perry and a few other female celebrities supposedly went up to outer space for 11 minutes. However, when they showed the space pod landed on the ground, one of the occupants was able to push open the door from the inside. This was literally seen on a live feed. Oopsies! When we see things like this happening on live footage right before our eyes, it makes me wonder, was the moon landing faked? I don't know for now, but I'll have to dig into the details on that for another time. Let's get back to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So the song also mentions Alderaan in the line, and Alderaan's not far away. It's Californication. So I had never heard of Alderaan before, but I Googled it, and Alderaan is a planet in Star Wars that is known for not only being peaceful and beautiful, but also having prestigious art, culture, and natural beauty. In the Star Wars movies, this planet was destroyed by the Galactic Empire's Death Star to test the super laser. Okay, lame to destroy this awesome planet just to test a giant laser. I think this is a very interesting lyric if you look at galactic history. Generally, the Star Wars movies, at least the original ones, represent the Orion Wars, with the Empire in Star Wars representing the Orion Empire and the Resistance in Star Wars representing the Black League of Resistance, which was a real organization that fought the Orion Empire during the Orion Wars. Now, I personally believe that the same ETs who were in control of the Orion Empire are also the same ETs who are behind Hollywood. So, this line in the song alludes to the fact that Hollywood is destroying our planet right now. At least they're controlling it, the art, our culture, and even our natural resources. And I would say that this goes beyond just Hollywood. Almost every powerful group, whether that's an agency, a government on this planet, is affected by the same ETs who are behind Hollywood. Allegedly, anyway. Even the song's lyric, born and raised by those who praise control of population, could insinuate that our planet is controlled by someone or something behind the scenes. This lyric could also be interpreted as calling out older generations that are buying into the system put in place, whether that be through government, corporations, or Hollywood, and to no fault of their own. With these older generations, they were simply doing what they were told and truly believed that what they were told was true. And if they did these things, they were doing good. Many of them were also just trying to survive. So, I personally see that this song could be interpreted as very much outing the elites and straight up calling them out, which seems like a very Starseed type of thing to do. So, similar to All Time Low, I do think that the Red Hot Chili Peppers are sleeper Starseeds, meaning that they're not really aware of any of this and are more so creating these lyrics through the creative process and based more on the way they see the world as humans, not because they are secretly aware of any of this or have seen this for themselves. I also want to talk about the Red Hot Chili Peppers 2002 song, Can't Stop, which has a lot of references to the band members potentially being starseeds. The first lyric I want to talk about is one of the last lyrics in the song, which is coming from space to teach you of the Pleiades. And that's how they say it. They say the Pleiades, but normally, typically, you hear, people who are talking about galactic astrology and aliens and stuff call it Pleiades, right? But they say Pleiades, which will make sense when I kind of talk about the next thing I'm going to talk about. Now, this is what really makes me think that the members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers are Pleiadian starseeds. They basically call it out in their song. It seems very specific, and when I did some research, I noted that Can't Stop was written using the band's technique of composing lyrics around the music and its rhythm, instead of the other way around. So I'm going to put up on the screen exactly what Google said. Okay, so here is the screen print from Google, and as you can see, specifically for this song, but I believe they use the same technique for their other songs as well. They first establish like the rhythm and the music that itself, and then they go through and they create the words around it. So it could be, just things that rhyme or random, or it just kind of sounds like they just allow their creativity to go and to flow and just allow these different things to kind of come in, even, maybe subconsciously, which if any of you have read the book Big Magic by Liz Gilbert, she talks about this, about how ideas will kind of come down and flow like into us and through us, and they're already kind of like floating above. So, kind of thinking about that, the way I imagine this is that maybe like the band members, like higher self or like the collective or ETs they're working with, even if they're not conscious of it, right? Like those are ideas for the lyrics and the songs and the things they want to say and kind of put into the mainstream are already out there. So through this type of creative process, they're able to kind of like, download these things, put them into the songs, these lyrics into the songs. And it's just through them being creative as musicians, right? And just kind of flowing and allowing that creativity to flow. So I think it's a pretty cool, way to do it, honestly. Now, you have to remember that the Pleiadian civilizations are in the fifth dimension and above, which means that they are not used to being in as dense and rough conditions as we typically find here on Earth. Because of this, unfortunately, a lot of Pleiadian starseeds have a hard time on the planet, and many turn to substances to help them escape the reality and trauma that is often found on planet Earth, which is another clue that the members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers may be Pleiadian starseeds, as many of the band members have suffered from substance abuse and addiction, with one of the band's original members passing away of a drug overdose during the early days of the band. The other lyric in the song Can't Stop that I want to talk about is all on a spaceship persevering, use my hands for everything but steering. I think this one is really cool because my understanding is that in higher dimensions with certain spaceships, you don't actually need to use your hands to steer. That's all done telepathically. You simply think of the location and then the ship goes there. So I found this lyric pretty interesting and that it basically is referring to how technology works in higher dimensions. So, overall, a lot of the lyrics in these two songs point to the members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers possibly being starseeds, souls sent or volunteered to come to Earth and be born as humans in order to help the planet and the collective. And just as I've mentioned before, many of these souls are coming to Earth to help and are totally unaware of their cosmic history or soul identity. And it's not just celebrities. Many of you listening may also be from another planet and have a cosmic identity. So, if you want to find out, I recommend booking a soul origin and life purpose reading with me, where we delve into the energy of your soul, your lifetimes before coming to planet Earth, and what is your mission and life purpose for your current life, aka, why are you even a human on this planet in the first place? Okay, so on to the next band, Cobra Starship. So this was my absolute favorite band when I was like 18, 19 years old. I went to a ton of their shows when I was in late high school and early college, and they always had such a fun energy. The lead singer and band's frontman and creator, Gabe Saporta, was always super nice and always came out after the show to talk to the fans. Here you can see some of the pictures I actually got when I got to meet him after shows. Oh, here's a picture of me meeting Gabe after one of the concerts I went to. I thought I had more pictures of him. I know I did take more pictures with him and I met him more than once. But this is the only one I could find. And I went through my, like, basically, like, my old Facebook is, like, my archive for, like, old band pictures and, like, emo shows and stuff. So this was the only one I could find. But I just remember him being so nice and taking time to talk to the fans a lot more than a lot of the other guys and other bands that I would meet. And I met a ton of these guys and they were all like nice and polite and stuff, but I just feel like he kind of like stood out amongst the others as just really like taking the time to connect with his fans. So, just thinking about the name of the band, Cobra Starship, it is definitely giving that it's related to ETs and possibly even reptilian energy with the reference to cobras, right? It's also interesting because the story that Gabe Saporta has told about the band's names for several years now has been that he went on a vision quest while out in the desert in Arizona where he smoked peyote with the Native American tribes there. During this, he built his vision for a new band and came up with the name Cobra Starship. The band began releasing music in 2005 and 2006 and eventually recorded a song for the soundtrack to the 2006 movie Snakes on a Plane. And this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, so this song, and I'm gonna go ahead and play the music video in the background for you guys. It's kind of blurry, but that's really the only copy that I could find online. But this song is clearly pointing to reptilians, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, in Hollywood, with lyrics like, "Tonight the sky's alive with lizard serpentines lounging in their suits and ties. Watch the bleeps parade for the price of fame. Hey." Just the whole concept of snakes being on a plane is pointing to reptilian energy. Other lyrics like "I can see the venom in their eyes" also point to this, with the word reptilian actually being mentioned during the rapping part of the song by gym class heroes Travis McCoy, with the lyrics, "Ladies and gentlemen, these snakes of Slytherin, with dollar signs in their eyes, with tongues so reptilian. This industry's venomous with cold-blooded sentiment." Like, whoa, like they said the word, they said it, they said reptilian. This is definitely a call out to the music industry and Hollywood being controlled by the elites, the deep state, malevolent extraterrestrials. This one does seem a bit more outright than the others, and it could still be interpreted as the band and songwriter's personal human experience, but just making statements about reptilians with dollar signs in their eyes at least seems to suggest that they are aware of the conspiracy theories surrounding reptilians and maybe referencing those, whether they actually believe them or not. Also, I do want to acknowledge how catchy this song is. Maybe it's the best part of that Snakes on a Plane movie, which I've actually never seen. And I also want to note that it was performed by Cobra Starship with special guests William Beckett from The Academy Is and Travis McCoy from Gym Class Heroes, who were both on the original soundtrack during the Cobra Starship show at 2025 Riot Fest. Yes, I was there. Yes, I was dancing wildly and having a great time. And I actually got some footage, so I'm going to play that for you guys now. So that footage was pretty bad. Pretty much every person was trying to film at that time because it was like such a big deal. Because number one, Cobra Starship like had not been playing like shows in at least 10 years, and I had not seen them in probably like 15 years. And so many people in the crowd were there, and it was their first time seeing Cobra Starship in so long. And then when William Beckett and Travis McCoy got up on stage and that song came on, like everyone wanted to film, everyone was going like crazy, and so I did my best to get good footage of it. But yeah, that's all I got. But it was amazing because during that song, it just, I don't know, there's something energy about it. I think the song's lyrics and kind of it's talking about all this stuff. It just made me feel like, hey, we've already won. Like the lights won over the dark. Not that I really believe it's that simple. But I do think there is a battle between light and dark currently happening on the planet. And I do think, like, in this case, like, light is going to prevail. The vibration of the planet is going to raise, the frequency of the planet is going to raise, and a lot of these things that have been kind of controlling the planet for so long are going to come to light. And I really felt the energy of that. I just felt like joy and just like hope, like during the performance of that song. Now, based on all of this, I definitely think that Gabe Saporta's energy might be some type of benevolent reptilian energy because not all reptilians are bad. And I've seen him and met him many times, and I get a really good energy from him. And being a benevolent reptilian could look a few different ways. He could have a soul from the dragon caste of reptilian, which is known for its neutral and powerful energy. His soul could be from the doll universe in which there were dragon humanoids who were not attuned to the darkness, but instead lived their lives in light. Or he could have been on a negative path as one of the bad reptilians in his previous lifetimes. And then he turned to the light and is now making up for it and clearing karma from those past lifetimes in this lifetime. And there could be a million different reasons as to why he chose to use the name Cobra Starship for his band, but I do think that naming his band this does leave strong evidence that he has some type of past life and or soul connection to the reptilian frequency. And I do think that Gabe Saporta may be a bit more awakened than the other bands we've talked about in this video so far. Not only does he reference things like going on a vision quest in Arizona, but he also follows David Icke on Instagram, who is one of the early individuals to talk about things such as reptilians and other related conspiracy theories. Now, one thing you typically see associated with conspiracy theories about the Illuminati is that they have certain hand signs that they do on stage. Now, I'm not going to comment on this other to say that Cobra Starship also has a hand sign that they use on stage to represent the band. It's basically just taking your hands and making them into the shape of a cobra. So I'm going to show you guys some pictures of this real quick. Okay, so here's like a sticker, I think, of the hand sign. So basically you can see you have one kind of hand like up in the back with like the cobra head, and then the other hand is supposed to be in front with like the two little fangs. And here's some pictures of, you know, some fans who are actually doing it. So like when you're on at the Cobra show, a lot of people will put this sign up, right? Like when they're up and when they're playing. And then as you can see here, Gabe also will do the sign while he's on stage, but he's doing it here. It looks some kind of like award show or something like that, and that's Vicky T, who's also one of the band members as well. So I've personally made this sign with my hands many a times at shows, and I don't necessarily feel any type of dark energy coming from the sign. I did find this reel on Cobra Starship's Instagram page that is spoofing the idea that Cobra Starship is a cult, and they use their hand sign to initiate cult followers into their cult. So I'm going to play that real quick for you guys here.
A town consumed with outrage over the band's arrival and filled with fantastic rumors. We came looking for the truth behind the band's threatening reputation, and we found it buried beneath a layer of free enterprise known as hype.
Cobra Starship.
Cobra Starship. Cobra Starship.
Cobra Starship. Cobra Starship.
Carl shows a band that really is cult. We call it throwing your fangs up, but it's some kind of initiation.
A strange craft landing near their fishing site and of being taken aboard by three unearthly creatures.
A charismatic leader known as Gabe's supporter.
My prayer is that there'll come a day when there are no cities left for him to perform in.
He's evil. This is not a game. We've already seen the effects that it can have on young people.
So that was pretty clever and pretty funny, I thought. But it really shows that they are aware of this type of stuff happening, right? And they're spoofing it and they're addressing it, right? Which makes me feel like they have a little bit more of a spiritual awareness than some of the other bands that we've talked about today. Okay, so that is it for Cobra Starship. I hope you enjoyed, and if you do want to see them, I do believe they're going to be playing more shows into the end of 2025 here as we wrap that up, and then going into 2026. But we're going to move on to our next band, which is another one of my favorites from back in my emo days. So this band is 303, and I don't know exactly what genre they are. I mean, maybe pop punk, a little bit of techno, but they're definitely fun and have a different sound than a lot of other bands. And they also recently released a new single called Slushy, which is actually pretty good. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I would definitely recommend checking it out. So with this band, I really want to talk about the fact that their band name is a number, which means that it has a coded meaning from the universe. All numbers do, and we typically hear about this with angel numbers, but actually every number has a certain frequency that resonates with a meaning or energy, and typically when you start seeing certain numbers everywhere, for example on clocks, timers, your GPS, addresses, bills, file names, it means that the universe, your guides, your higher self are sending you a message with that number. So I think it is very interesting that this band chose a specific number as their band name. Now, of course, the band has stated that this is because 303 is the area code for Boulder and Denver, Colorado, where the band's two members, Sean Foreman and Nathaniel Mott, originally met. And while that's true, my guess is that the band's frequency and impact their souls wanted to make on the planet and the collective is also related to the frequency and vibration of angel number 303. So I looked up angel number 303's meaning, and according to the Joanne Sacred Scribes website, angel number 303 gives you the courage to live your life with enthusiasm and optimism, safe in the knowledge that you are very well blessed, loved, and supported in all that you do. It is also a message that encourages you to live your life with joy, passion, and purpose in order to manifest your true desires. Which is an overall pretty positive, uplifting message. So every time that a song from 303 comes on your Spotify or YouTube playlist, that's a sign from your higher self, your angels, guides, and even your star family to live your life with joy and passion, to remain optimistic and enthusiastic about life. And oftentimes these messages can come in at certain points that can make these messages even more impactful. For example, perhaps you're driving and you have your Spotify playlist on shuffle. You're thinking about a new project that you want to start on the side. This project is something really aligned to your true passion that maybe you don't get enough of in your day job. You're also very nervous about starting the project because it is outside of your comfort zone. Maybe it's a different set of skills than you're used to having in your job professionally. And in the moment that you're thinking about this, that you're having this doubt in yourself, a song by 303 comes on. This is a sign from the universe to pursue this side project with optimism and enthusiasm. It's also an invitation to face your nervousness and fears about stepping into this new role head on. Now, 303, very similar to Cobra Starship, also has a hand sign. It looks like this, right? So I have it up here on the screen. It's three fingers, 0 or O, and then 3. So I will say that it does look strikingly similar to hand signs that are typically associated with the Illuminati and conspiracy theory circles. Now, I have not heard this band perform in years, But overall, I've never felt nefarious energy from them, and I definitely don't see any signs of them working with dark or demonic energy from anything I've seen. So I did want to know a little bit more about this. And so I went into the Akashic Records and I was channeling and I was trying to figure out what they're doing during their shows. And I actually do think they are using some type of reptilian energy. And I just want to preface by saying that doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it for a bad reason, right? That's just a type of energy that they're using. And I think sometimes, like, when stuff has happened with reptilians, sometimes like bad things have happened, like sometimes removing those bad things, you also need to use the same type of energy, which I also actually saw a lot of rainbow energy coming down during their shows. And then like voice activations and frequency activations occurring with that energy coming down. And it looked like the energy is actually scanning each person's body, energy field in the crowd, and removing any type of implants, that were in the body. So typically implants can be left in from like past life stuff. This is energetic implants. I'm not talking about like physical implants, right? But like kind of like nasty infestations of either different entities or different energies or even like stored trauma and things like that. So it's kind of clearing a lot of that out is what I saw the energy doing. Also doing, it feels like some type of voice activation and working with the throat chakra. So whenever we were talking about all time low, we were talking about how they're really like enlarging the heart chakra. But when I saw what 303 like energetically is doing, it's like they're more working with the throat chakra. They're part of a group that has like a very scientific approach as ETs. So I think that they are also like kind of here on a mission to gather data as well, which is very, very common with ETs. And I wasn't able to recognize really specifically like what group they're a part of. But it definitely felt like they were doing more like removal of negative energies and like clearing activation of throat chakra, as opposed to just like with all time low, they were just kind of like pumping up everyone's heart chakra during the shows. And so with 303, I've always been a really big fan of their music and love listening to it. I've loved going to their live shows. I even caught the drumsticks from 303 back in the day. But I will say that I have never really like listened to a lot of their interviews, so I don't know their personalities or much about them. I also don't know if they're spiritual or not. And so I did kind of see, like when I was channeling in, like they're from this group of ETs, and I couldn't really put my finger on like what their soul origin is, and that just based off the fact I don't know a ton about them. I'm gonna leave their soul origin point kind of open, and I'm gonna assume like they're probably sleeper starseeds, unless they are in their private lives very spiritual. But again, I don't even know if their public lives, if they talk about spiritual things and stuff like that. So yeah, so a little bit shorter on 303, but I just really wanted to share kind of the channeling, what I saw during their shows, and then also like the angel number meaning as well. So now we're gonna go to our very next and very last emo starseed we're gonna be talking about, and that is actually Machine Gun Kelly, also known as MGK. Okay, so MGK, he's a little bit after my time. So I don't know a ton about him. I haven't listened to a ton of his music. The biggest thing I really know about him is that he dated Megan Fox. Now, I love Megan Fox. She is a spiritual girly. Like, I have seen interviews of her talking about so much different spiritual stuff. She was doing spirit baby readings for Chelsea Handler, like back in like 2016, 2015. I don't know exactly, but I mean, that's a while ago. And so I love her. And I know she dated MGK. I think they're broken up now. But other than that, I don't know a ton about MGK. I've listened to his songs like here and there when they've popped up on Spotify. But the reason that I wanted to talk about him and bring him into this video is because of his diet. And so I heard this clip about him, that it was talking about how he doesn't really eat, and he only ate this cheeseburger because it was like a promotion or advertisement, something he was doing, some type of video he was doing, but he wouldn't eat that cheeseburger otherwise. Okay, so I went ahead and Googled it, and here's a clip that I got from Google. So MJK, he does a lot of extreme intermittent fasting, and he doesn't eat that often. It looks like he maybe only eats like solid food a couple times a week, but he does all like the bone broth and like the probiotics, and then it looks like celery juice, coconut water, a bunch of other stuff. So this stuff seems like fairly common for people who do fasting or intermittent fasting. And there's been a lot of, it looks like maybe back and forth about if this is healthy or not for him to be doing this on the internet. I'm not going to be able to weigh into if this is healthy or not. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not really going to be able to say any of that. So if you have a question about whether this is healthy or not, please go ask your doctor. Please ask your nutritionist, because I don't know. I'm not qualified to know. But what did kind of come up when I was listening to this and seeing this about Machine Gun Kelly is that it's interesting because the way that humans here on planet Earth are made is that our DNA is from a bunch of different types of aliens and extraterrestrials, right? So basically, we as a human race are created by extraterrestrials with a bunch of different types of DNAs. And this was happening, I mean, way prehistoric, pre recorded times on planet Earth, right? And so all these different extraterrestrials used to come to planet Earth in their spaceships. They could come and they could leave, and some of them lived here. And they basically created like the ancient humans who we're all, descended from. And there's lots of information on that whole process on the internet if you want to go and check that out. But basically, like, although we all have these different types of DNA, like, we don't all have exactly the same proportion of each type of alien DNA, alien race DNA. And so, like, for example, like in the UK, there were Lyrans, so ETs from the ancient star system, Lyra, who were going and were creating humans there. So they had a little bit like higher percentage of Lyran DNA in the humans in the UK. So a lot of folks in the UK may have a higher percentage of Lyran DNA as opposed to other types of alien DNA. And then, like a lot of people in the US are descended from people in the UK. So, like, it could be the same here, right? But what I found really interesting, to take it back to MGK, is that individuals who have a higher percentage of gray alien DNA often need to eat less, or want to eat less, right? And so we have all met this person, right? This person who just doesn't like to eat. It's just not fun for them. They don't like to eat. They don't want to eat, right? Or they don't feel the need to eat. Or they're like, why are you eating so much? Or like, why would you need to eat this many times a day? Right? It's just their natural state. It's nothing they're doing wrong. And they're still relatively healthy. And a lot of these people, obviously, like, they're going to be thinner if they're eating less, right? But they don't necessarily look like they have some type of eating disorder or something. And in my very non-professional opinion, when I just look at MGK, he doesn't look super unhealthy to me. Like, he's just like a lean guy, but he doesn't look like he's underfed by any means. So when I look at MGK, if I had to guess, I would guess he probably has a higher amount of gray alien DNA, and maybe that's why he wants to have these eating habits that are very, very different from kind of the normal eating habits that most humans would have. And I do want to note that I'm talking about his physical body and his DNA, right? Because in the other instances, when I was talking about the other bands, I'm really talking about their soul origin. So where their soul is from, not their physical human body, right? Like, your physical human body is going to have makeup of different alien genetic races. And that could be the same as your soul and like your soul energy and what star systems it's been in. A lot of times it is, because it's easier for maybe someone who is an Arcturian to come down into come into a human body that has more Arcturian DNA, as opposed to like one that's like all Andromedan DNA, right? Like, that does happen, but it's not necessarily all that way 100% of the time. And I want to touch on this a little bit. I don't want to get too far into this today. But the reason also that humans on Earth are different races too is also because of this differing alien DNA. So a lot of people who are of European descent, they're going to have more like Pleiadian, or potentially like Aldebaran, or even like the Nordic race from Lyra. That's going to be they're going to have more of that type of DNA, right? And that's why they're going to look more Caucasian, whereas people who are like from India, like the country of India, they're gonna have more like vegan DNA, right? Because they're so vegans vegans are actually blue, right? So when you get up into higher dimensions, like darker skin that looks more like brown here on planet Earth is going to turn blue when you get higher, right? Like people of Asian descent are most likely going to have more Andromedan type of DNA. And so it just really like, it just depends to like the type of alien does play a factor into like what human races there are, and that's why reason we have so many different human races on this planet, right, is because we are this type of experiment planet, right, where the aliens basically like created us using a bunch of different alien DNA, right? So you may not see quite as much contrast if you're on other planets. Like all of the humanoids there, they're different from Earth humanoids, right? They're a lot taller than us, they live longer than us. Depending on like what dimension they're in, they may have like less dense bodies than us, but typically I don't think, in my experience, I'm not saying this 100%, but in my experience, I don't think you're going to see a planet with so many different races as you would as Earth. But what you will see are planets that have a bunch of different types of aliens on them, right? Like everything from like, okay, we're going to have the Arcturians, and then we're going to have like the Lyrans, then we're going to have the Vegans, we have the Syrians, and then also you have things like centaurs and gnomes and fairies and all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of diversity there. I guess it's just not diversity like in the same way that we have on Earth, like different types of one species. It's like other planets just have a bunch of different types of species on them. Okay, so as of right now, we don't have a 23andMe alien DNA test. Hopefully one day we will. Like once we get more disclosure and like, hey, aliens are real, they're on the news, like we know all of that, then I think more people will be interested. And I actually think it's like a possibility we could learn that in our lifetime. But until then, we just got to go for best educated guess. And my best educated guess with MGK is that he has a higher amount of gray alien DNA, and that's why he just doesn't want to eat as much as other people. Okay, so that is all I had to talk about with Machine Gun Kelly, and that will also be the conclusion, our last emo starseed. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I had so much fun talking about all this stuff. Just emo music has been such a fun part of my life. I really loved it and enjoyed it. So getting to look at it from a spiritual perspective was just really, really enjoyable and cool for me. So again, thank you for listening. I hope you learned something today. I definitely feel like we talked about all kinds of things, not only emo music. So a lot of information, a lot to digest, I'm sure. If you do want to work with me one-on-one, I am going to link my link below. I really do a lot of different things. My big focus, has kind of always been galactic origins, understanding, your soul energy. Why are you here on the planet? Who were you before you came to the planet? Why did you want to come here? Really working through that, but I do all different kinds of services and readings too, a lot of them of a galactic nature. So I would love to work with you one-on-one. If you enjoyed this, you want to work with me, you want to learn more about your soul origin, or go into my galactic portal chamber to meet your star family, or maybe there's some past life stuff you want to work on clearing, please click the link below, and we can meet and we can figure it out. So all right, thank you so much for listening, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Bye.